Hello and welcome to today's class where we'll be doing less of a traditional yoga practice and more of a conditioning style class, a stretch and strength class focusing on the upper body. And before we get started, things that you might want to have today, not need to have but nice to have, is a yoga blanket or some kind of blanket or soft towel, something squishy, and maybe a yoga strap. Again, doesn't have to be a yoga specific strap, but some sort of belt or strap might assist you in today's exercises. So let's get started, and we will begin with the arms. So let's raise the left arm up high and sending it back. Take the right hand and gently guide the top elbow towards the center. We want the fingertips to reach down the back. And then gently, I keep repeating that word, gently, draw the elbow towards the back of the head and then eventually lifting the chin. So my elbow starts off kind of like kitty corner a little bit, and then ever so gently moving it this way. It tends to go upright now with a lot of practice, but the tighter your shoulders are, the less cooperative it might be, and that's okay. So gentle is the operative word. And I'm talking myself through this one because it's a little tight, and this is good. And we hold and we breathe. I've said before, some stretches are just nicer. This one is a little bit challenging for Carla. Last few moments here, if there's the room available, lifting the chin, and then slowly, slowly release. And other side. I always need like an additional second. Let the blood flow return. Okay, here we go. So now right arm up, sending it back. Left hand guides the elbow gently, gently. And sometimes one arm cooperates a little better than the other. So it's good to notice if that's the case, but no judgment. So don't think too much of it, just noticing. We're trying to learn about where our body is at, where there's some tightnesses, where there's a little resistance, where one side isn't quite the same as the other, but no judgment. Things even out over time. So same, guiding the elbow towards the back of the head. Maybe it makes it there, maybe it doesn't. And then if available, lifting the chin. Maybe that's in your practice today, maybe it's not. But the key really is no judgment. Just increasing range of motion a little bit. Couple deep breaths. And then slowly, slowly release. This is one of those ones that feels amazing afterwards. So let's work on the bottom arm. So this is a pose, it actually is a traditional yoga pose or part of one where we have two arms combined, but we're just working on one at a time. So for the bottom arm, I'm actually going to turn around so you can see. I'm going to do my left arm first. It's my better arm. So left arm goes behind, and we're trying to reach the back of the hand to be between the shoulder blades. So you can see mine is nowhere near. This is where a strap comes in handy. So if you have one of those yoga straps with the loop-de-loop, where it can actually loop through, then if not, you can just sort of double it up and do a makeshift loop. But what you do is you just hold onto the strap like so, and then same thing, you bring it behind you, and then with the opposite arm, guide and draw the back of the hand towards between the shoulder blades. So for me, this arm actually does sort of get there eventually, but I kind of inch my way, scooching it up towards between the shoulder blades. And then once you're there, I'll turn back around here. Then I just want to see if you can see my couple things. One, my scapula, my shoulder blade is sticking out, and I'm going to try to bring that in towards the body. And the way I'm going to do that is not by thinking shoulder blade into the body, but rather the shoulder, drawing it back and drawing the elbow back as well. And that feels a lot better on my shoulder joint already. So holding here, not too long, but a couple deep breaths. And by guiding my elbow and shoulder back, my shoulder blade will situate itself a little bit closer to the body. And for a lot of us, it's kind of interesting, but lots of stuff happens. There's a lot of in life shoulder injuries or tightnesses or imbalances. And so for a lot of us, one arm works a little better than the other. And I'll show you on my next slide how it's even more so. And I love how I like to show my, see what I'm doing wrong on camera, but it's really interesting actually. So letting this one go, nice and slow. Taking a second. So that was my good side. Heading into the other side. So my right arm is dominant, and so that means my right shoulder is a little tighter. That's usually the case, not always, but here, check this out. So we lasso the hand, bringing it behind the back. Same thing again. I'm going to try to, actually I'm going to get rid of my blanket here so I can show you kind of all angles. Opposite shoulder over with the strap, and then you can see how my shoulder blade is quite far away. I can feel it, I can feel it trying to vacate my body. So stay with me. Shoulder blade. So what I'm going to do is right away, I'm scooching the back of the hand towards the middle of the back between the shoulder blades. It doesn't quite make it, but that's okay because this arm's a little tighter for me. And then drawing the shoulder and elbow back. You might be able to see it at this angle. The shoulder blade moves towards the body, but I don't quite make it all the way, and that's okay. So we stay here, and the more I do this pose, the better it gets, and the more even things become. But yoga's like that, just like everything in life. You can't just brush your teeth once and be like, yay, I'm done. It's a maintenance thing. So I do try to incorporate this particular stretch into my general practice periodically, just to make sure I maintain at least a certain amount of mobility. Last deep breath here. And then slowly, slowly release. And then it feels so much freer after. I love that one after the fact. In the middle, it takes everything I have to not scrunch up my face. So setting our yoga strap aside, we'll head into the next stretch where I like to have a yoga blanket. So, and the reason why yoga blankets are specifically yoga blankets, it's because the seams are, I'm not a seamstress, but like they're sewn in such a way where the part where you fold it over, I think it's called a hem, it's not bulky. So that when it's flat, or when you fold it, it's flat. So sometimes towels are like that too. And what we do here, this one's a little awkward, but it's amazing. So we lie on our bellies, and this is for the outside of the arm. So it looks, I'll just show you what it looks like, and then we'll actually do the stretch. So it looks like this stretch that is very common and a lot of us do frequently. So we stretch this part of the arm, but we're going to do this lying down. And then we have the body weight, our own body weight. So it's like a body weight stretch. So coming down onto the belly, here's where the awkward part comes in. So I'm gonna bring my right arm across. And what I'm trying to do is before I actually get into the stretch, I'm trying to move myself into the correct alignment and correct position. So right now my arm is not parallel to the top edge of my mat. I'm trying to get my arm parallel to the top edge of my mat and then myself square on top of my arm. So I want both shoulders to be square, so you can see my arm's a little bit bent actually because I'm quite tight, but eventually we loosen up quite a bit. So now I'm going to gently, gently, gently. I'm actually just clasping my hands. You don't have to do that. You can just let it go, but I find it's easier to keep the arm in position. And then I'm lowering my chest onto my arm. And then we hold. I'm going to grab my timer to make things even on each side here. So nice and gentle. You'll have to use your back muscles to keep yourself from placing all of your weight onto the arm unless you have that mobility. And this one is really interesting. I love this stretch because depending on what stretch you're in, you can notice results sometimes sooner or sometimes later. This one, we notice results not just like within a few weeks or days, but actually within a few moments. So my arm is now almost straight, and it was bent before. There's a lot of loosening up that happens here fairly quickly. So we've been here about 30 seconds or so, and now I'm able to put most of my body weight onto my arm. And it just feels like a really, really nice stretch. So I was not shy about saying I did not like the other stretch that we just did, but this one I find feels really, really nice. And we just hang out here. And then I'll mention again, in case I didn't say the word gentle enough, I think especially with shoulder stretches, because we do tend to be aware when we do sports or go to the gym or do exercise, we are aware, yeah, we should stretch. But there's our certain go-tos that we do. And the rest of the body tends to get a little bit neglected. And the shoulders are one of them, I think, that we tend to kind of forget about a little bit. So because we do a lot of strength training with them, we do push-ups, we do a lot of things with our arms in a lot of activities, but we don't do a lot of very specific stretching. So just extra cautious. And then slowly, slowly, come on out. Okay, other side. So left arm goes through and same. So I'm clasping the hand just to keep the arm in place, double checking it's perpendicular to me and parallel to the top edge of my mat. And then just taking my time, eventually completely square. I'm kind of turned a little bit, and that's okay too, but eventually we want to be square. And then whenever the body gives you a little bit more space, feel free to move into the pose a little bit more. We've been here about 30 or 40 seconds, so just over a minute to go. Nice, slow, deep breathing. And then slowly, slowly, come on out. And hopefully that feels amazing. We're in the right position for the next pose too. So this next one you've probably seen before. We often will do this stretch at a wall. I'm going to do this one lying down because then I don't have to move, so it's nice. So I want my right arm into a box shape. And I want my blanket here as well, so cactus shape. And move my blanket over this way. So now my elbow is straight out from my shoulder and my hand is straight up from my elbow. So a nice 90-degree angle. And then what I'll do is I'm trying to target the opposite side of the shoulder. So now I'll use my other hand and open up through the left side. So this is like there's not a very specific, you can see my my leg is bent. You don't have to. It's not a traditional yoga pose. You can have your legs however you want to. So all I'm doing is just sort of opening up so that I'm on my right hip. My left hip is stacking. You can have your foot behind you as like a kickstand or in front of you. I'm using a little bit of weight onto my left hand to try and support. So it's a little awkward. You could even just lie down your head. I find it's a little easier to target the stretch if I'm active and lifting up a bit. And if you're not feeling the stretch, then you might want to just double check that your arm is at a 90-degree angle, kind of come out and come back in again, and that you're opening up straight to the side. So I want my left shoulder still in line with my right. I'm not trying to twist at all, just opening up, but not too long for this one. And then we'll come on out. And other side. So now left arm is in a box shape. Right hand supports. And then opening up, other side. And just adjusting so that you can feel that stretch on the front side of the shoulder. And then slowly come on out. And all the way up. So for that one, yeah, it depends on where you need the stretch, but you might feel it anywhere from the front of the shoulder, or you might even feel it across here. The next stretch I like a lot as well. So it's for the wrists. There's 3 stretches that we combine, or do sequentially rather. And the first one is we place the palms on the floor. Your feet can be wherever. So I'm just kneeling and sitting back onto my heels just to sort of get the feet out of the way. You could sit cross-legged if you prefer, but we want to be able to place the palms onto the floor and then lift the palms up but keep the fingers on the floor. And we hold. So it's a stretch for the fingers. This whole sequence today is really good for, well, it's good for everyone, but if you do weight training in the gym, really good for that. You know, we do a lot of, especially this one here, you know, where we curl the fingers around the bar, that kind of thing. And this is an opportunity to move in the opposite direction. Or if you're into any racket sports, right? Again, we're curving the fingers around the rackets. And so this is a counter stretch to that. We're trying to hold and not fidget. Mostly I'm saying out loud to remind myself. And then slowly release. And then just whatever organic movement feels right. I like to do a little bit of a, I don't know what you call this, something like that. After that stretch, just allowing your fingers to move as they want to after that stretch. Then the next one, extra gentle. So we're going to stretch the forearms. So we place the palms facing down, fingertips to the floor, and then rolling over to the backs of the hands. So really gentle until you feel the forearms stretching. So in comparison to all the rest of the muscles in our body, these ones are very tiny and delicate, and we don't do a lot of stretching in this area. Sometimes we don't even do a lot of strengthening in this area, so just be really extra cautious. It feels very awkward. It's supposed to feel very awkward, but not painful, very gentle. And if your elbows are bent, totally okay. They don't have to be straight. There's no specific technique for this. We just want to try to get the full backs of the hands on the floor eventually. If they're not there yet, that's okay. If you're feeling a gentle stretch in the forearms, you're doing it right. And then slowly release. These stretches are really good for yoga as well, if you do a lot of yoga practice, because we do a lot of plank in yoga, a lot of wrist strengthening exercises, so it's a good counter for those. The last one is my favorite. So palms facing up. This is for the backs of the wrists, and it feels amazing. So fingertips to the floor. It's the exact opposite as the last one. And then guiding the palms down to the floor. So you might even need to lean forward if they don't make it all the way there. They don't have to, but I like having the palms flat on the floor, even if you have to move forward. And then if you're a little more flexible, you can lean back. And if you're even more flexible, you can bend the elbows. So we're targeting the backs of the wrists for a stretch. And in this one specifically, especially if you're into racket sports and you're one side dominant, you might feel that dominant side a little bit tighter, a little bit more difficult to stretch. So I love this one for that reason, because anytime you're feeling an imbalance, just know that you are actively working to balance that out. So I like that feeling, knowing that's happening. We'll hold this one just a little bit longer than the others. And this one we're stretching ligaments as well as muscles. And ligaments they're a little more resistant to stretching. But our ligaments do tend to shorten over time as adults. And so it's nice to do stretches for the ligaments as well to keep them at a healthy length. So what we do for ligaments is we hold the stretch for longer, but even more gentle if possible. So a nice gentle stretch here. Almost done. And then slowly come on out. And then take a sec. It takes a minute for my fingers to want to move again after that one. So whatever organic movements you feel like doing. Some people like to shake the hands, like shake. That feels like a big no-no for me. Safety-wise, there's no issue with that. If that feels right for you, go ahead and do that. I like slow, gooey movements. So from here, we sort of stretched everything out on the upper body, and now we'll just do a couple strengthening exercises. And I love these ones too. So here we go. Heading into our first one, I just call these plank ups. I don't know if they have a proper name, but I've been doing these ones for years and they're amazing. So if you are stronger, feel free to do this exact same conditioning exercise in a full plank. So I'm in hands and knees right now. What I'll do is I'm going to head into a modified plank. So with my knees back a little bit. And then if you're extra strong and I want extra challenge, feel free to go into a full plank. I'm quite content with the knees onto the floor. So from here, it's a really small movement. And all we're doing is moving maybe a half an inch or just like a centimeter or two. So we push up and release, kind of sinking down into the joints a little bit, and then pushing up and release. And it's one of those things where unless you're looking up close, you might not see much at all. So keep going. So we sink into the joints and then we push. So you're creating space in the shoulder joints and keep going. So we're pushing, making space, and then release. Pushing, making space, and release. While we're here, scoop the belly in. The whole time, keep the neck long. Keep going. If you need to rest at all while we're doing this exercise, feel free, and then hop back in when you can. We're not here too long. Just enough to try to feel a little bit of warmth happening. I notice that my dominant side is trying to take over, so I'm just going to make sure I've got equal weight on each hand. And relax. We can head back to a child's pose, so lowering the hips down to the feet and even placing the forehead on the floor, just relaxing completely. For 5, breathing deep. For 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then come on up for our next upper body exercise, which is similar, but we start in a modified plank, and then we tuck the toes under, and belly scoops in. We lift up to a full plank, so straightening the legs, keep the neck long, and then gently lower the knees to the mat, keep the belly pulled in. Belly scoops in, straightening the legs, belly scoops in, lowering the knees. You can see a theme there. We want to work the core. Keep going. So all we're doing is we're straightening the legs and we're bending them. Keep going, keep going. If you need a little rest, take rest with the knees on the floor. If you want extra challenge, don't lower the knees all the way if you're really, really strong. But be sure that you're using the core nice and strong. Try to use the core, make it more about a core exercise than anything else, which clearly is challenging. In fact, I can feel everything else a lot more than my core right now, but really, really trying. So pull the belly and focus on the core. We're not doing this one too long. Again, if you need a little break, take a little rest, and then hop back in when you can. While you're here, keep the shoulders down away from the ears so that the neck has lots of space. Double check, belly is scooped in. Almost done. Taking as much space in between as you need, going at your own pace, straightening and bending the knees, making it as challenging or as easy as you're feeling today. And last one. And then heading back to a child's pose. Hips press back, down to the feet, gently lowering the forehead to the mat for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And slowly come on up. And we'll prepare for the next upper body strengthener. So this one also is not a traditional yoga exercise, but it's really good for people who do practice yoga a lot because it's a bit counter to what we traditionally do. When we do push-ups, spoiler alert, in yoga, our push-up style is more of a triceps push-up. So we keep the elbows tucked in and we use the triceps. So for this exercise, we'll have the hands nice and wide. So we'll do wide push-ups and we'll allow the elbows to move out to the sides, but focusing on the palms, remaining completely on the floor. There's a tendency when we do push-ups to cup the hands. So the thumb side of the hands tend to come up off the mat. So really focusing on, instead of just thinking, okay, I need my hands to stay on the mat, if you focus on one point, and that's the root of the index finger. So where the finger meets the palm on the index fingers, that one point of the palms, the base there, that helps. If you focus on putting more weight there, it won't bring more weight there. It'll evenly distribute the weight. So focusing on pressing into those spaces while we do these push-ups, and you'll be good to go. So same. If you are wanting less of a challenge, we can do push-ups through hands and knees, or a little bit more challenging is the knees on the floor. Most challenging is the legs straight. Okay, so I'm going to have my knees on the floor. And then hands nice and wide. I like mine slightly wider than shoulders width apart, and I place my pinky fingers, that's the tips of the fingertips, off of the mat and then the rest on. That's just how I like to space my push-ups, my wide hand push-ups. And then here we go. So not too many, not too long, but again, try to make it more about the core. So we bend and we straighten. That's it. So trying to think about the roots of the fingers, of the index fingers, pressing down into the upper insides of the palms, going at your own pace. So maybe you're bending and straightening your arms like a hummingbird, or maybe you're going nice and slow. Maybe you're taking little rests. Wherever you're at, we're trying to challenge ourselves, but not go too much past that, because otherwise it won't be enjoyable. You know, we want this to be It'd be great if conditioning could be enjoyable, but at the very least, make it not terrible. Okay? Keep going. Not too long. Almost done. And then head back to child's pose. Hips down to the feet, forehead to the floor. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And come on up. Don't fall asleep. The next one, actually there's 2 of them, and these are really, really good for posture. So we come onto the belly. These are T's and Y's. So onto the belly, we extend the arms out to the sides in a T position, palms facing down, and then nose to the floor. Belly scoops in, almost like you're trying to raise the belly up off the floor, shoulders away from the ears, and then we raise the arms up. Double check, look to the sides, that the arms are straight out from the shoulders. So we don't want them too high or too low, straight out. Then they go up, and they don't have to go up very far. We're going to the full range of motion that we have, but higher is not better. In fact, make it more challenging. So scoop the belly in, tuck the tailbone under. And then whenever you need a little rest, take a little break, and then hop back in when you can. Double check, so nose is on the floor, belly scooping in so that it's almost trying to come up off the floor. Tucking the tailbone under, shoulders away from the ears. Keep going, breaking when you need to. And relax. From here, let's head all the way up and back to child's pose. And if your arms feel loosey-goosey, that's good. That means you're doing it right. So hips back down to the heels, forehead to the floor. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come on up. And the next one is very, very similar, but even more awkward and therefore fun. So I'm just going to clear some space. So these are Y's. So we lie down on our bellies. And then the angle I like to go towards is towards the corners of the yoga mat. And it's almost like you're trying to make a big V or a big Y. And then same thing again, though, nose to the floor, belly scoops in, almost like you're trying to tuck the tailbone under, shoulders down away from the ears. And same, lift the arms up and up and up. And you'll notice they don't go up as high as they do in the T's. In fact, they might not move up at all. So if that's the case, that's okay. Just try to lift them up. Up and down, taking breaks whenever you need to, hopping back in when you can. Thumbs are pointing up for this one. Again, shoulders are down, and we're trying to keep the arms as straight as available. Almost done. Shoulders down, nose to the floor, belly scoops in. And relax. From here, let's Place the hands down and push yourself all the way up to seated. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me today in this strength and stretch exercise for the upper body. I hope you'll join me next time. Have a really good rest of your day.